How did that meeting with the CEO go? What is the CEO interested in, and do you change your language in any way?
I think with the product teams, it's really more about the learnings and like what do we do next. And I think for like higher management,
And since you have more experience in experimentation than just Condor, I was wondering, is there a difference between the experimentation program that you now work on at Condor versus the experimentation programs you've seen somewhere else for other brands?
definitely, I think it depends a lot on the industry, on the culture, and also on the goal it has. So I've accompanied customers that just started out, kind of that's how I did it with Condor, while other customers that I had at Konversionskraft were already way farther ahead in the experimentation program, so they had other challenges. They were facing like kind of the quick wins were out of the picture, so you had to have like a lot.
Hey, Leah, thank you so much for joining us today on the initial podcast. I'm so happy to have you as a guest. You're currently working at Condor Airlines, but you have been in the experimentation space for a while. But I wanted to ask you, how would you introduce yourself? What are you known for in the experimentation space, or what are you extremely good at?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me. So super happy to talk to you here. I think I'm not sure if I'm known for anything like specifically within the industry. I don't think I have like the media presence to be known outside of my work environment. But I think within my work environment, my colleagues probably know me for like being really well organized. I think that's actually also like a really big asset for experimentation because with like experimentation, you have to have your eyes on a lot of people, a lot of things happening because it's not just like a single project, but more of like a methodology and more like an initiative. So I think that's like a big asset. And I think another thing that I bring to the table is empathy. And I think empathy can be like really valuable as well because you work, after all, you work with humans and they have all their own challenges. They all have their own like goals. And I think experimentation can work better if you understand those and kind of can act upon. So I think those two might be something that my colleagues at least know me for.
And how do you bring empathy to experimentation?
I think it's a lot like what I learned in past companies as well is that it helps a lot to understand where people are coming from personally. So more in terms of, okay, what challenges do they currently have? Like what's the pressure that's like on them and like how do they react to it and how can we help them with experimentation? So I think if you kind of know the point that where people stand at and what the emotions are within their work environment and also towards experimentation, it's way easier to kind of meet them where they are and not kind of force them to the point where I might be. So I think that's kind of meeting in the middle because in the end I feel like experimentation should be helpful to others and should be something that they see as like a way to make their work better. And I think you can't just go there and be like, hey, I know everything and I know everything better because that's not the case. So it's more about having also the empathy to understand when who has the expertise for what and kind of reacting upon this. So I think it's just like if you're kind of good with humans, it helps a lot in the experimentation space in general.
So you are able to switch from we as a company to really thinking from the visitor's
I mean,
perspective.
I try to. I mean, from once from the customer's perspective, but also from the internal colleague perspective. So I really try to understand the customers and their perspective on things and how they feel about our product and what they are kind of having maybe for like in mind for risks or chances, if you say so. But also from my colleagues' perspective, because they also have their own tasks and challenges and getting both on board is kind of the key, I feel like, for experimentation.
Why do you need to be empathic to the perspectives of your colleagues? Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, you can't do experimentation on your own. You have to have like its collaborative aspect and an initiative more or less. So, at least in my experience, the goal to experimentation and setting up an experimentation program is really to get the people on board and to get them invested and to get them curious and also to make them understand what's there, kind of what's in it for them. So, and I think to kind of make them understand it or at least like bring them the benefits that they might need in their daily work, you have to understand where they are at. So I think getting like my colleagues' perspective, since I want to help them with providing them with experimentation tools, is kind of the goal at least, or one of the goals, or yeah, one of the keys, so to say, to success for this.
Okay, so you need your colleagues to do successful
Yes,
experimentation.
definitely.
And what are some of the tactics that you have used to do this? Can you describe maybe a couple of things you've done that have helped in that regard?
Yeah, sure. I mean, to being annoying is also a good asset because I think like the
Okay.
first year when I joined Condor, it was like a lot of like ringing on doors and being like, "Hey, experimentation is great, and we can tell you why," and kind of being a marketer, so to say, for this topic, and being really persistent about like getting teams involved because obviously they have their own roadmap, they have a lot to do, resources are always scarce. So it's not like they are sitting around with their time and they don't know what to do with it. So you're kind of coming in with something that's kind of a disturber to some degree. So what we kind of, or what our big benefit was that we had like our own developer within the CRO team. And so we could kind of sell experimentation at the first step as kind of this low effort, easy entry thing that we just wanted to get people curious. And so we kind of went to the teams proactively and we're like, hey, we have a few ideas for your product. You for sure have also ideas for your product, and you might be able to brainstorm it together, and you can do the prioritization, and we can just like do the whole thing, give you the data, and then you can make like better decisions, and everybody's happy. So that's kind of the approach that we took because our first goal was really to get more teams involved, like getting all the product teams in the boat and kind of producing those like collaborations and producing the results that we create together. So I think that was like, yeah, one of the first steps that we took.
Okay, so let me list that because I think I heard a couple of things here. First of all, you did marketing by being a little bit pushy and
Yes.
annoying internally. You also had your own developer, which created a low effort for teams to hop on. And did you do some kind of brainstorm, or how did you actually involve more teams to do testing?
I mean, usually we went to the team. So when I started at Condor, I really had like a sit down with every PO, and I just kind of wanted to understand where they are at, like what challenges they face, like where do they want to go with their product. And then I kind of had like a first good feeling of, okay, where do we might be able to create ideas based on the data that we can already see in our analytics and content square, etc., so that we can kind of come to them with the data and be like, hey, based on the data, this might be like a good fit for you and something that we could test. And usually we also try to get ideas from their side and be like, hey, maybe you also have something in mind. We also had like really good collaborations with the designers, and they kind of our way into the team sometime because they usually also have like a lot of great ideas, and we could kind of get them on board with, hey, we can help you to get them realized. And so I think this was like definitely something where we try to be collaborative, but also we brought ideas to the table just to be sure that if the teams don't know yet what's the best approach, to kind of get them into the mindset and how a hypothesis can look like. And I mean, now we thankfully also have teams coming to us and saying, hey, we want to test this. But in the beginning, it was like a lot about us bringing ideas to the table.
Okay, well, that's a great list of things to do and inspiration. So we had marketing, we have create a low effort by bringing in, for example, developers, sitting down with POs to empower them and also see what ideas they have, and kind of Trojan horse. That was number 4. I wrote down number 4 as Trojan horse your way in by using
A
designers
little
as a
bit, yeah. I
leverage.
mean,
Yeah.
thankfully our POs were pretty much on board with the topic. So, but I think the designers were just like a really great partner for us in the whole project because it's like they are already have like a great way of thinking about behavioral patterns and like a lot of things that are relevant for like experimentation and good experiments. So we kind of brought the data to the table. They had the UX expertise, and together I think we were able to form some really good like test ideas and hypotheses. And I think that kind of was something that we could bring to the table to the POs and be like, hey, we have this great concept that's really thought through, and you just have to say yes or no. And this is what I meant with like really low effort in the beginning. So it feels more like it's a nice to have, or it's like at least like it can't hurt me. I don't have to spend my resources as a PO. And yeah, this was definitely an approach to things.
Sounds great. And if we go back in time a little bit, what was your very first experiment? What was the first A/B test you have ever done?
To be honest, well, like I think I'm not sure if I remember the really first A/B test that I did because like before I joined Condor, I worked at Konversionskraft, so I had like a lot of companies I worked with and like in parallel. So I'm not really sure what like identically the first test was, to be honest, but at least for Condor, I definitely remember it. It was like I think like it's often called a quick win. Doesn't have to mean it works for every company, but what we tested for Condor when I joined was just like a tiering message on the payment page. Because I mean, the process of selecting like your flight, it's kind of connected to a lot of emotions about your holiday coming up, and sometimes because we have to ask for a lot of like passenger data and stuff, like from a legal perspective, it doesn't really feel like planning a vacation. It feels more like you're buying an insurance. So what we kind of just wanted to bring to the payment page, where people have to commit to paying for a flight, was just this: hey, your holiday is like, you're one step away from your holiday and you almost did it. And this was kind of the first thing that we tested for Condor, or at least
And
when
was it
I
a
joined, we first tested this one.
was it a winner or
It
not?
actually was a winner, so that was nice. It might mean it wasn't like we pulled conversions up by 5%, but it definitely like was a really good example of how really small things, if you understand the emotions of customers, can still be a lever for change. So it was really a nice one to start off with. So yeah.
And did you later build on that as well? Were there any follow-up
Yeah,
tests?
definitely. I mean, we didn't have too much follow-up tests because I think the payment page was like in general like a big testing point for us, since it's kind of the last step before conversion. So we didn't like, we had follow-up tests for the cheering test where we, for example, had like it looked like a loading bar where it says like 97% to kind of give you this completion pattern. So we tested out a bit in that area, but also we have done like a lot of other things on the payment page. So it's always about, okay, not like spending too much in the beginning on one aspect, but we also kind of wanted to spread out across like other things, because we saw with the cheering, like it's nice and it does like a little bit of things, but we also saw that the exits come from other aspects. So we kind of also wanted to focus on other things that might be a burden or like a hurdle rather for the customers on this page.
You haven't been at Condor forever, but do you know when they started A/B testing?
I mean, roughly. So I definitely know it's been floating around for a while now. So even before, like when Condor was still connected to Thomas Cook, I know there was something happening in that area, but I think mostly it started after Corona or after COVID. So they had like an external freelancer that was doing some A/B tests for them, but it was really mostly about, okay, creating some growth after COVID, like just getting some quick wins in. So I wouldn't call it an experimentation program, but really just A/B testing, because I think there's a difference there. So the tool was used, but it wasn't built into a program. It wasn't really discussed with the POs. So I think around 220, 221 roughly, at least like more proactively within the current ecom setup.
And what do you think happened when Condor went away from that one-off growth? Well, not necessarily growth, but that one-off A/B testing that was kind of its own world to what it is now.
I think it's really more understood as a tool for like growth and success. Beforehand, it was just a project being handled, I think, in a lot of people's eyes. And when I started, it also wasn't like viewed too positively, at least from example from the like IT perspective, because since they weren't on board with some of the changes, they felt like, oh, they're just breaking the website with A/B tests, which I think is like a common issue that you might face if you don't do the communication proactively and well. So, and I think for the product teams, it really felt more like, oh yeah, there's somebody doing some tests there, but it didn't felt like they were involved and they were part of this, and it was more like a collaborative thing. So I think this is one of the biggest changes, I would say, is that it is more now understood as one methodology that they can all use.
Yeah, that's amazing actually that you have managed to change that.
Yeah, super happy
Um,
about that.
was there anything that you did specifically to change that or anything that was difficult to tackle there?
I mean, I think the most focus that we had in the first year, it was really about getting them involved and awareness for the topic. So we had a few kickoff sessions where we talked to all of the people, like even designers, developers, everybody was invited, about what is experimentation, like it's been used for a while and there's a reason for it, and why are secondary metrics important? How does A/B test work technically? How do reports look like? How do you create an hypothesis? So there were like a few, let's say, fundamentals that we shared with the teams. But afterwards, I think it was really more about that we approached every team personally. We went to all the product owners. We talked to them about, okay, how can we help you? And then I think a big step to kind of connect it across the teams was that we set up a monthly meeting, a test and learn format where we invited the whole of ecom and where we said, okay, here we share all the insights. So not like that, not only the teams learn stuff for themselves, but that we share those learnings across the whole like team. And I think this was also a big step to saying, hey, this is like, we're all in this together, and this is not like a team topic or a project, but this is something that we should kind of consider as something that we do as an ecom team.
Did that also improve the velocity of experimentation and the number of tests run?
It did a little bit. I think we have kind of a special place right now at Condor, which makes it like a little difficult to scale to a certain degree. So even though we got like a lot of the product teams involved, it was kind of indirectly because we currently have the situation at Condor that we have a lot of our resources allocated to building a new website with a new tech stack, new CMS, so the whole deal. And this means that we were kind of bridging as a CRO team between doing some tests on the live website that currently brings us revenue and the other page doesn't. That we kind of wanted to help this page grow and help this page improve, but also help the product teams which are working on a product that is not yet connected to the customers to connect it to the customers by pre-validating changes that they aim to do for the new website through the old website. So this is why I say it's like hard to say that we increase velocity, like we increase velocity across the whole program for sure over time, but since we conducted all the tests, it was limited to our resources. But what we achieved is that the tests that we conducted were more spread across the teams in that term, that the ideas came from the different teams. And we kind of provided learnings for the new website to the different teams and not just to one team.
And what is different about the new website? Is it just the language behind it, or is it also the whole look and feel that is different?
Kind of the whole thing actually. So you have to imagine with like COVID and like some financial situations that we had with Thomas Cook. I don't know if you know Thomas Cook, but they went insolvent, and this was connected to Condor. So Condor had a few rough years. So the website was kind of just being there and being kept alive. So this is why we decided, okay, we want to have like really a good technically set up website. So it was easier to start from the beginning. So we have like a design system, we have like better API standards, we have like the whole tech stack is different. So it's like really a completely new topic, completely new project. Also easier for us to include new markets this way. And yeah, this makes it like other people and can explain this way better in our team. But it's like, it's kind of just like the whole engine is different and not just like the look and feel.
Yeah, no, I understand. But it's a lot.
Yes.
And is the yeah, is the replatforming done now or not yet?
No, it's in the process. So, I mean, we haven't like communicated any timelines or deadlines yet to the outside, but it's we will roll it out across markets bit by bit. So that's the current approach. But until this time, we are still kind of functioning as a bridge between the team and the customers.
And can you walk me through the steps that you took to validate the new look and feel of the website? Because I imagine it's different than just running a normal experimentation program. Now you had to actually probably change your mindset and change how you work. Can you explain a little bit of that mindset shift and what you looked at to A/B
Yeah,
test
sure.
while replatforming?
Mhm. I mean, you also have your limitations with experimentation in this area, so you have to understand them. For example, we also did a lot of qualitative research and user research in general, and I think that was also like a big lever for us to validate changes in design and how people understand the new website. Something that A/B testing can only deliver to a certain degree, since we really can't answer in detail the why and how people understand it. So we also had, of course, the limitation that we had to stick to the design of the current website, because if we change just one element and it looks completely different, would be kind of inconsistent and mess with the results of the data that we see. So we always kind of had to Frankenstein things a bit. So kind of that it's like the old look, but maybe the change still was valid and visible. So we could still see, okay, does it do something with the customers within the old environment? So again, like research was also a really big part.
Yeah, because not everything was you were able to A/B
Exactly.
test. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Um, and are there any common mistakes you'd like to share about that process of replatforming? Anything that you faced that maybe you got stuck at, or some difficulties? Is there anything to share there?
I mean, for the replatforming, I think I can say much because I wasn't like in the lead. I wasn't like much involved. Like, I mean, I was involved in terms of knowledge, but I wouldn't say I'm able to say, hey, those were like things that were stuck at, or I think, yeah, that those would be on other teams and people that could like say this better.
Mhm. And did you, so going away from the whole replatforming, I wanted to ask you about leadership buy-in. Was there, since you started, always leadership buy-in, or did you sometimes have to advocate for experimentation? Can you tell me something about
Yeah,
that?
sure. I think I had quite like an easy job on that front because I was hired as a CRO manager. So obviously there was some awareness for the topic and I didn't have to start from zero. So with my direct leaders, it was like already there was some awareness and there was some need for the topic, which is why me and a colleague of mine were hired initially for this topic. I think the bigger challenge is to kind of bring it outside of the e-commerce department. So kind of we had like first meetings with the CEO where we kind of after the first year presented how we progressed with the program and also including revenue management and other teams outside of the e-commerce where it was more about okay explaining why we think the topic is like a really big benefit for Condor and kind of getting the buy-in from their side. But from the direct, let's say, e-commerce side, it was really easy for me to I kind of already went into there with the need being there, sort of made it way easier.
And how did that meeting with the CEO go? What is the CEO interested in, and do you change your language in any way?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think with the product teams, it's really more about the learnings and like what do we do next. And I think for like higher management, I mean, they have so much that they get, like so much input that they get over the day. So we really try to break it down to some numbers, of course, but also to like why we think this is beneficial. So we made it like really precise and really short because I think it's like anyway, they get so much input, they can't remember everything from the day. So we really wanted to have a few points that stick. And this was for us about database decision making that experimentation brings to the table, and also some numbers to show from a few POCs, okay, we can find levers with this approach just based on user data, customer centricity, and that we can make decisions better based on this data. So I think those were like just a few points that we really wanted to stick. And the feedback was really good. And I was super happy about that because I think, and in the end, that's totally fine. Like management, they just want things to work well and to flow good. And if they feel like something is serving this goal, at least from this, like at Condor, this was the case. They were on board, so they felt like okay, this is serving the overall goal, so they were on board. And yeah, super happy about that because I know that this is all not always the case. Just because you have benefits and you show that it's serving the goal doesn't mean that people give you the buy-in for things.
And since you have more experience in experimentation than just Condor, I was wondering, is there a difference between the experimentation program that you now work on at Condor versus the experimentation programs you've seen somewhere else for other brands?
Definitely. I think it depends a lot on the industry, on the culture, and also on the goal that the experimentation program has. So I've accompanied customers that just started out, kind of that's how I did it with Condor, while other customers that I yeah had at Konversionskraft were already way farther ahead in the experimentation program. So they had other challenges. They were facing like kind of the quick wins were out of the picture. So you had to had like a lot dig like a lot deeper to find levers for change. So I think that's one big difference that at some point you just have to dig a little deeper and understand customer needs better and do more research. I think another point is probably, as I said, also the goal for the program. So we had some like companies that were, for example, not even focused solely on the conversion rate, but rather on we might want to do return costs or like in general cost reduction, acquisition cost reduction. So I think it's like really about okay, at some point maybe introducing a loyalty program. You know, there are so many goals that a company can have that really have an impact on how the experimentation program proceeds and how it kind of works. So I think the goal and the culture and maturity make like the biggest difference there.
Yeah, totally understandable. And just thinking of the experimentation programs you've seen, what does success of experimentation programs look like to you? And maybe you can give some examples of how that was measured across different companies.
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I think again, success depends on the goal. So overall, of course, you should have your metrics in line that kind of pay into your goal, and then you can, at least from a data perspective, directly measure if it's like a success or not, like if you're serving your goal or not. But I also feel like it's really about the adoption rate for most programs. So you can have like the best tests, but if it's only a few teams joining you and a few people on your side, then it will never have the impact that it could have. So I think the adoption is like a really big success factor. I know that the revenue topic and forecasting is obviously always like something that's being asked of management, and I understand that, but I think that's like one of the harder things to do well, and that's definitely something like we are still struggling with. But yeah, again, like I think the adoption and also the like methodology is big because again, like experimentation is not like a safe word that everybody uses the same way, right? So you can do experimentation really right and or really well, and you can also do it somehow. So I think like that you have like a good approach to things and that you kind of have the basics right. I think that's a big success factor.
Yeah, totally agree. And you said something about the adoption and how important that is to really scale experimentation. We have talked about the changes you have done, so marketing, making it easy for them to jump on, start with the PO, start with
Mhm.
designers. But I was also wondering, do tools and maybe systems you use also play a role in this?
I would say so, but not as much as they could maybe. So, I mean, we are using Optimizely for experimentation at Condor, but we also have really nice tools like Content Square that help us to analyze the data and kind of understand the customer behavior better. So for us within the CRO team, those tools are a big win to making things easier. But since we haven't like handed over the ownership for experimentation into the teams yet, I don't think the tools are yet creating the bridge that they can in the future when we are all using the tools for the same purpose. So currently, obviously, the teams also work with analysis tools, but not for the experimentation purpose of things. Um, but this is definitely something that we're currently working on and want to change in the future. But I wouldn't say that the tools are playing the biggest part right now.
And how do you report on wins currently, or wins, or just outcomes in general?
So I mean, we kind of have a multi-level system, so to say. I mean, we have our PowerPoint presentations. Currently, there's not a way around it. So we have like a management summary slide there. So what we just want to make sure is that the gist always gets across, and then we have like more detailed information on the details for how it worked for different devices, for example. But we definitely have a PowerPoint template that we always use and that we report with to the POs. And this is also the slides that we show in our test and learn meetings. So this is kind of the consistency that we provide to the teams in terms of how we present results. And apart from that, we also always document the results for each test on a Confluence page. And that's like really basic, but we just have a Confluence page where we have a table with like where we kind of document the status, like was it a winner, was it like no effect, was it like a significant decrease, how was the hypothesis, on which place, like on which page took the test place, on which platform, because we have also like different platforms that we test on, and we also always link the report there. So this is kind of like the easy overview that we provide. And then again, like the PowerPoint templates are more for the documentation purpose. So there's everything in one place for the tests.
And is that still a lot of manual work, or are you already like building workflows or doing some AI there?
I mean, AI will be like a broader topic. I mean, we're looking into the AI solution from Optimizely right now. So with Opal, you have a few like possibilities. Building slides with AI is okay-ish, I would say. So I think it doesn't totally replace it. But we're definitely looking into to automating this more in the future. So there will be definitely some things that we aim to do here. For now, I think it's like a lot of manual work still. But with like some changes that we aim to do in the next year, we're also looking into automation, because if we would like slowly hand over the ownership for experimentation into the product teams, for us this would also mean that we try to give them like a process that's as lean as possible. So that's kind of connected to it, definitely.
And any predictions on what the effect of AI will have on experimentation?
Oh, I'm super curious about that one myself. So I'm not on the page that some people have those scenarios where it's like, yeah, we're only optimizing for AI, and no humans will ever visit our website again, because I mean that's just not the future that I see at the moment in the near future. And I think it kind of needs to be go both ways. So obviously we're at Condor, we're also looking into um, API connection to AI, so like people can buy their flight via AIs, and that's something that we also look into and optimize for. I think with the AI topic, it's more about how can we be more efficient with the process without losing the human factor. So that's something I'm really curious about. So kind of finding the balance there, because it would be kind of stupid to ignore that AI can help you a lot to be more efficient and effective, especially with the rising like workload for teams and like a lot of challenges for them and a lot of projects and product teams. I think using this effectiveness will also drive experimentation because it makes it more like accessible, but we really have to, yeah, I'm really curious about that one, just how much we can do there. But I don't think it's like those like end scenario that some people say, yeah, crow will not be a thing or experimentation will not be a thing in the future because we just optimize for machines. So maybe I'm not that into the scenario as some people.
Yeah, no, I understand. I think that's a fair prediction as well. And in now we're talking about predictions and the future. What are you doing next quarter at Condor? Are you doing any special project? Of course, the replatforming is still going on. Do you have things that you'll be focusing on?
Mhm. Yeah, actually, some exciting stuff coming up. So, as I said, with the release of the new platform that will like slowly happen across the next year and the next months, um, there's for us was kind of the question like, okay, what does that mean for experimentation, and how should we change to be valuable? Because I mean, for me, the question is always, okay, how can my work be valuable, and how can I have like additional benefits provided to the company that I work for? And I felt like, okay, the least thing that we need with all product teams working on the same platform, which we hadn't had before on that level, is another team that comes in with, hey, I also have ideas, and we also have like, we can also code and release stuff. And I just felt in my mind that's not really valuable and not really like making things effective. So what we currently work on is like a roadmap and like, let's say, a training plan for how we can get the teams onboarded into experimentation on a deeper level, so that when we are kind of live with the new platform on like all relevant markets, that we can then say, okay, you are ready, you have the tools, you know what to do, and that we can function more as a center of expertise, less than an operational CRO team what we are right now. So that's really exciting, and I think a lot of this will happen in the first quarter in terms of planning and strategy, so we kind of can get the teams ready across like the year, because I think the least that you should do is kind of push it on people in a week and be like, yeah, you're ready now. So what we really want to do is kind of take the time and be respectful of the team's time and schedule. So that's like a big thing coming up.
Does that also mean that with the replatforming, there are more teams or more segments? I think you touched upon that a little bit.
It's not really more teams, it's more teams working on the same platform, I think is the big difference. So we had kind of the, let's say, the like our product teams are like kind of separated across the different stages of our booking funnel. And so, for example, we have one team that does like virtual airport, like the online check-in, for example. We have another team that is more in charge of the search engine. So we kind of spread it across the different steps. And we already have those steps on the old platform, but it's like in the new platform there are specific owners for this, and every team handles their own product strategy. So this will be a difference in terms of, right now we kind of connect the teams on the old platform through our A/B tests, but on the new platform it will be the first time they are all working simultaneously on the same platform. So I will, on that note, it will be kind of a bigger change.
Yeah, I see. And is everything also A/B tested when it goes into production? So even though these parts will go live, is that through an A/B test, or is that still a little bit of we ship it and just hope it's gonna work for us?
A little bit of both, I'd say. So obviously we try to pre-validate the big changes through A/B testing, but also you have to be time efficient, and I think that's also something you have to be aware of is that even though in a perfect world we would test everything and every change and be 100% customer centric and database, that's just not the reality. And that's also not the reality for us. So I think there's a lot of expertise we have within the company, depend like with like design system experts, with UX experts, with developers. And I mean, they also bring something to the table that we have to trust in to some degree. So obviously we try to test a lot of the touch points in advance, but with the rollout, it's also okay, we roll this out. And because at some point you have to just roll things out and see how it works, and then you can optimize, right? So I think if you go too much into detailing like every single thing and kind of trying to validate everything, then you will just get really slow. So middle ground, I'd say we definitely obviously want to be at a point where we test everything, or at least test everything that makes sense to test, but we are not at a point. So a little bit of both, I'd say.
So, what are the things that you don't test? Can you give some examples?
I mean, I think in general, and this is also what I always try to say to the product teams, that experimentation is kind of a risk assessment. So you should also never use an A/B test result and be like, that's 100% the truth and we can rely on this forever. So you should be always cautious of results in a way. And of course, if we have like a really big user base for a test and like the results are like really strong, that we can be like really confident in the results, but you should be cautious. It's still like a momentum thing, right? So what we try to explain with the testing is like how much risk are you willing to take. So if you make like a really like let's say small change on like a wording, for example, or like a really small change, if it's like is it a checkbox or is it a radio button, do you want to risk, like do you see a big risk in this change? And of course this is a learning process, because sometimes when you feel like it's not a big change, it can still have a like great impact on user behavior. So it's like a learning process, but I always feel like, okay, for example, I would test every single change made to a payment page. It's the last step in the funnel. It's super vital. Even if you feel like it's small, let's test it, because I've seen that people react really sensitively to like the last steps within a funnel. So that's something where I would say let's not take risks here. But on a like a content page where we're like, okay, do we slightly change the headline, or do we like change the button, or do we have like a module slightly different like optic? Let's just do it. And we can still monitor the data, right? So it doesn't mean that we have to close our eyes and hope for the best. We can still see, okay, did the performance change drastically after this release was put out? And then we can still go back and say, okay, let's re-roll it and like test it again if there was a big change that we did not expect. But I think it's a lot about, okay, how much risk are you willing to take? And there are some pages where I wouldn't take the risk, and there are some pages where I'm like, okay, I think it's like fair to say we cannot test this, or we don't have to test this.
Yeah, that sounds like a good system. And do you think experimentation in general is for bigger brands, like Airlines is a big brand, or is it also for smaller brands?
It's definitely also for smaller brands, but it's also obviously depending on the traffic. So if you're like a really, really small brand that doesn't have much traffic and just starting out, I think there are other methods that might be more effective for you and more helpful for you, like talking to your customers. And it doesn't have to be like a big user research even. You can just go to your customers if you have like in-person people, or you can just like get in contact with them and ask them about their feedback. I think that's like a big first lever. If you have like low traffic, of course, if you get like some traffic in at some point, A/B testing is a great tool, and you don't have to have like a big tech stack or like a big team of developers to do it, depending on what changes you try to do. But I also think it's like kind of dependent on the size of your brand and how much resources you have.
Yeah, sure. So, Leah, we have come to the end of this conversation, but I'm still wondering, is there anything we haven't discussed yet that you would like to touch on, or that you would like to share, or anything you're working on?
I think I've shared most things. I can't come up
Yeah,
with anything right now, so I think we covered a lot right now, and I
definitely.
never can keep myself short, so I think I've already gotten into the detail quite a bit.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much, Leah, for being a great podcast guest here. You've taught us a lot about adoption, about replatforming, about growing experimentation programs, how you do that, the tools you use. So, very, very grateful to have you here. Thank you.
Sure, thank you so much.